Hey, welcome. So today we are digging into this ancient text that, believe it or not, holds a surprisingly modern secret about how we build our reality. It's like a blueprint for life, and it's been hiding in plain sight for over 2,000 years.
You know, it all kicks off with a really fundamental question. And this isn't from some new self-help book. This was actually asked by a young man named Subha about 2,500 years ago. He just looked around and saw what we still see today, a world full of, well, profound differences. And he just wanted to know why.
And this was the Buddha's pretty radical answer. He basically said that the architect of your experience isn't fate or some god or just random chance. It's your karma, your actions. Think about that. Our actions are the raw material and our life is the final product. Okay, let's really dive into this.
To really get a grip on this blueprint, we're going to start with a pretty straightforward translation. You know, just using the standard dictionary definitions of these ancient Pali words. This is going to give us a nice, clear baseline for what these actions and results look like right on the surface.
So the text lays out a whole series of really clear cause and effect relationships. The first one is super simple. If you engage in actions that harm life, the result is a life that is itself short. It's a direct reflection, almost like a mirror.
And this pattern continues, but it moves into our internal world. The action of, say, constant anger and irritability, well, according to this first translation, that leads to the result of being physically unattractive. So an internal state is literally shaping an external reality.
And here we go again. What happens on the inside has consequences on the outside. The text suggests that the internal action of envy results in having very little influence or power out in the world.
And finally, for this round, the action of being stingy or, ungenerous, that leads directly to a result of poverty. So on the surface, this all looks like a pretty simple moral code, right? Do good things, get good things. Do bad things, get bad things. But is that the whole story?
And this is where it gets really, really interesting. What if our modern, direct, one-to-one translations are actually missing the original nuance? What if the words themselves hold a much deeper, more psychological meaning that just changes everything?
So we're going to apply an ancient linguistic tool to find out what's really going on here. Instead of just translating the words as we know them today, we're going to investigate their roots to understand what the original speaker actually intended.
The special tool we're using is called Naruti. It's basically a method for getting past that surface-level dictionary definition to get to the core concept the speaker was really trying to get across. Honestly, you can think of it like we're going on an archaeological dig, but for meaning.
All right, let's do it. We're going to take those same concepts we just looked at and apply this Naruti insight. We'll put the translations right next to each other to create a kind of visual translation. And what you'll see is a much more profound psychological process at play.
So our first word was anger. The dictionary gives us a familiar emotion. We all know it. But the linguistic translation, using Naruti, well, that gives us something so much more descriptive. Inner friction. Now, what on earth does that mean?
Okay, so the original Pali word is koda. Its root, kud, literally means to resist. So the Buddha wasn't just talking about, feeling mad. He was describing the action of internally fighting with what is. It's this constant, grinding resistance to reality as it's happening.
So when you see anger not as a feeling but as inner friction, the consequence, an unattractive appearance, suddenly makes perfect psychological sense. It's not a punishment from the universe. It's the natural result of constant self-inflicted wear and tear. You're literally grinding yourself down from the inside.
All right, let's move to our next term and see how this whole idea builds. Our modern word is envy. But the Naruti translation gives us this really visceral image of burning discontent. Again, what we thought was a passive feeling becomes this active, destructive internal process.
The Pali word here is issa, and it comes from a root that's all about heat and burning. The original intent wasn't just about wanting what someone else has. No, it was describing the painful, corrosive experience of being internally consumed by the fire of another person's good fortune.
So the result of having little influence isn't some cosmic penalty. It's the totally logical outcome. If all of your energy is being used to fuel this internal fire, you have absolutely no energy left to build influence, or create, or grow in the external world.
Okay, our last example is a really fascinating one. The dictionary gives us arrogance, which we think of as an attitude. The linguistic insight, though, gives us over-measuring, a flawed mental action, a process.
The Pali word is ati mani, and it's actually a compound word. You've got ati, which means over or excessively, and mana, which means to measure or to conceive. So the action isn't just being arrogant. It's the specific mental habit of constantly measuring yourself against others and always getting the measurement wrong.
So, here's the crucial point. If you walk through the world constantly using a broken ruler to figure out your place, what's the result going to be? You end up in a low station. Not because you were punished, but because you were using a faulty tool to navigate your social reality.
Wow. So what started out as just a simple list of moral rules has completely transformed, hasn't it? Through this deeper translation, we can now see this profound psychological blueprint for how our inner actions directly design our outer world.
The takeaway here is really three things. First, it's clear. Our actions are the cause and our life is the effect. Second, the very words we use to understand those actions can either hide the truth or reveal it. And third, by seeking a deeper understanding of these concepts, we gain so much more power, more agency over the lives we want to build.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This ancient text isn't just some historical document, it's a mirror. It forces us to ask ourselves, if my internal actions, my frictions, my burnings, my measurements, if those are the blueprint, what kind of life am I actually designing right now?